Long time no see here.
Long time no talk here.
I know. A lot of updates.
What, number one?
In our life.
First update, which I don't think we ever announced, is that we are pregnant.
Yes, we are pregnant.
I'm pregnant. I'm in my second trimester.
Yeah.
What a huge answer to prayer it's been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some of our most recent episodes, recent meaning like 3.5 months ago.
Maybe 2 months ago.
It's been at least 3 months.
You think?
It's been a long time.
I'll have to check when the last one was.
But some of our last episodes, we talked about some of the painful journey around waiting for pregnancy to happen, which we were trying for 9 months. And on the 9th month, we finally conceived.
Yes.
And it just so happens that on the 8th month, I finally got really, really, really surrendered with the Lord and felt like I entered into this place of trust where I was like, I trust your timeline. Like I
don't need this pregnancy to happen right now.
I don't need this to happen. Like I'm putting it, I felt like I had fully let go, which I had prayed a lot of prayers like that, but I still like had a tight grip. And it's just funny how that happens. So 9 months of trying, finally got pregnant. And then another huge point of tension in our life was trying to figure out what we were going to do with our house. We had been looking at other properties, wanting to sell this place. We love the place that we're in right now, but we also were just dreaming about downsizing, saving money, maybe trying out a different part of the island. And we ended up putting in an offer on a home. And it got accepted, and it was a contingent offer.
On the sale of our home here.
So basically, we move into that home, and we can live there, and we have 75 days to receive and accept an offer on our home that we own. So we are technically renting the home we moved in, but...
In addition to a massive security, or a massive earnest money deposit.
Yes. So... we took a big risk, and it felt like there was a ton of favor on that decision.
Yeah, tons.
Just open doors. Like we ended up knowing 2 of the neighbors on that street. It was a gated community, tons of kids. There were literally 30 kids. They were all boys. And so Wilder was getting to like play with the kids on the street all day, every day. So we just had 2 massive breakthroughs and 2 massive answers to prayer that ended up being the hardest things we went through this whole year. So once I got pregnant, I have just been exhausted.
Yeah.
Like little to no capacity to do life at all. And then the house ended up being a huge, how do I even describe it? Point of frustration, pain. It didn't feel right. The transition was super hard. We moved, so basically found out I was pregnant, moved our whole home to the other side of the island, and then went on a trip for 8 days, and then came home from the trip, and we all got the flu. And that happened in a period of like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Wilder really struggled with the transition. So it was like literally 100 tantrums a day for like 10 days.
And businesses really going through hard stuff.
Yes.
So I want to introduce the episode first, and that's because, you know, we are very much in a financial surrender like posture, I'd say, in our lives right now. Here's what I'll just say for you listening or watching this. I can't tell you how many times I've been with like men in groups, and when you get down to the biggest struggle of their lives in whatever season it is, it doesn't even matter. It's usually, it comes down to lack of provision or not trusting God for provision and finance. Finance is usually a very, very huge subject in the conversation. And I feel like there's multiple facets to it. There's the triggers around money and lack. There's the belief systems that contribute to your situation, that contribute to your stress, that contribute to your hopelessness. There's belief systems, right? There's lies we're believing. And then there's the actual practicals of, well, how do I even think about money? You know, how do I have master over money and not have it, you know, be a master over me? How do I make plenty of money and not have money own me? How do I step into entrepreneurship? What's the healthiest way to manage money? Are we just to have none of it? Are we supposed to have a lot of it? Prosperity doctrine. There's all these, I feel like money is such a triggering subject and a controversial subject when you start bringing it into Christianity. Everybody has these different beliefs. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people have slammed us and shamed us just on our ads that we've put out onto Facebook or Instagram, offering to teach people how to become life coaches, faith-based life coaches. It's like, you would have thought that I gave the most awful, slamming, diss to someone's wife that I had ever given. And that's what, caused these types of comments to come. But all we're doing is like offering to teach people how to coach. But what we're facing is these crazy mindsets that we've all grown up with. And I think money just has a grip over a lot of us in some way, shape, or form. I know it has for us. I know it has for me. And so we wanted to open up a dialogue so you can kind of learn from some of our mistakes and failures. I think we're going to be as vulnerable and honest as we can so you can learn from those things. I don't hear a lot of people openly talking about the money they make, the money they lose, what they learned from it, those lessons. We want to unpack all the lessons we feel like we've learned from big loss and big gain over the last decade. And hopefully have you learned something from it in the heart aspects, but also the pragmatic aspects. And then at the end of this episode, we want to give you a really powerful resource that's changing my life, our lives right now, so that you guys can have something that's probably the best resource I've ever heard of, better than Dave Ramsey in terms of like learning how to manage money and wealth and all that stuff. So
and it's not even just learning how to manage finances. It's also managing your heart process around finances, which is, I think, the most important aspect of our relationship with money.
Well, how you relate to God with money.
Yeah. So anyways.
Yes.
What was two of the biggest answers to prayer ended up being massive points of pain and tension for us. Just so depleted, super triggered. The move didn't feel right. The being on that side of the island didn't feel right. The community was amazing. We got super surrounded, and there were a lot of really beautiful highlights to being over there. But by the end of the, 6 weeks, we basically were like, this just doesn't feel right. Like, we want out. And we had hit the end of our contingency window anyways, and hadn't received an offer on our home that we were willing to take. And so we basically said, we're out, let's pack everything up. And we lost $70,000 within the period of 6 weeks. And we had made that decision to move over there to save money. So now we're in a bigger hole than we were before we even made the move. And we're having to hold this tension of, I think on one hand, I'm like, how much more money would we have lost if we went to renovate some of the things in the home that really needed some TLC and then found black mold under the cabinets and pantries? So on one hand, I'm like, I think we might have dodged a bullet and saved a lot of money and saved a lot of stress and relief. And on the other hand, we're having to look at, man, was that just an impulsive decision? Like, we wish we never would have moved in. We thought we needed to be out of our home so that we could show it more frequently. And
now you're bringing up like some of the feelings and thoughts we had that may not be true or may not even be what we believe, but like came up in the midst of our triggers.
Yes.
Yeah. So all sorts of different thoughts.
We're just kind of spiraling, like this felt like God. And now here we are moving for the second time in 6 weeks while I'm pregnant. I can hardly do anything without having crazy pain in my, hips and sacrum, and doing it with a toddler and wondering, like, did we miss something? And here we are in a bigger financial hole than we were to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think that feels like a theme for me in our last couple of years of life, is like, we are really good at taking big risks. We will send it. If we have vision for something, we will make it happen. And it feels like the stars can align on some things and we get the, green light and we just run. And we have made huge gains doing that. I'd say overall, it's been net gain, net positive. Mm-hmm. And then we've lost a lot of money, and we've made some really big, bad financial decisions that I don't have regrets about. I don't think either of us live that way of like, we feel guilty for this, or this was a failure, or we regret this. It's more like, man, it hurts to grow in wisdom. And we don't know what we don't know. And I'm thankful that we have as much willingness to risk as we do, and have sent it so many times. Mm-hmm. But we have also had to get ourselves out of a lot of different really expensive holes, financial pits over the last few years. And it feels like it's hard to actually build and grow. It feels like we're constantly backtracking, trying to get out of debt. Like you guys, if you've followed for a while, you know, we took on $1 million of debt in 2021?
No, 2022.
2022, that's right. It was Wilder's birth year. $1 million of debt we took on in 2022, paid it all off in 2023, and got to like a good baseline again, and then went way more into debt, like $200,000 of debt in the last year. Mm-hmm. And half of that was 2 bad financial decisions.
Like which ones are you talking about?
The pool project.
Okay.
We started renovating our pool because we wanted to increase the value of our home. And we were expecting a really big...
Enjoy that.
Enjoy it until we sold it. But it was also like, if we could increase the value of our home and then sell.
Yeah.
But we were expecting a big check to come in, and it is basically a year late, and we still don't know when we're going to get it. But we made a decision with money we didn't actually have yet. Which is one of the things that I'm like, okay, noted.
Noted. Yeah.
Noted. We made a decision with money that wasn't in our bank account yet. And we ended up having to pull out of the project, lost $60,000 because of it.
Yep.
And then similar story to our house situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's where I've kind of landed on those things, but I can talk about some of the process. I've landed at, we made the best decision we thought in the moment that we made the decision. And so we can't take on any guilt or condemnation or shame, truly. Like there's no license for it. There's no license for it in Christ. There's no license for it even just with our posture in the situation. Hindsight's 20/20. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. Yeah. And God knows I am a slow learner sometimes. And then the second thing was the same thing. We're like, you know, my spiritual father, I was talking to him and he was like, were you making like a wise decision that you felt like was the best in the moment with the home? I was like, yeah. He's like, and you wanted to save money and downsize? I was like, yeah. He's like, and it didn't work out, but did you like give it your best in the moment? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, it's just money. Yeah. And I was like, that's true. Yeah.
Keeps it really simple.
Yeah, for sure. But I think for me, it's been difficult for me to work against my normal protector in the midst of this type of trigger and insecurity, because my typical response is, let me do whatever it takes to turn this around. Mm-hmm. We will never be poor again. It's like that. I was actually processing the other day. My vow I made when I kind of moved out of ministry was I'm never going to be poor again. Mm-hmm. And there was a mixture of God calling me to wealth and to business. And that was so true. It's like just a part of my DNA to solve problems, to see problems and offer solutions, to create industry and entrepreneurship.
And
I love it. I love leadership. So there's that. But then there's the other side where it sometimes gets mixed into that, where I get into this like, control, this I will control so that I'm not afraid. And it kind of keeps God out of the driver's seat in a lot of areas. And it keeps me out of a place of faith and trust. And it kind of puts me in this orphan position where I'm like, I have to do this apart from a father, like separated from a father that loves me, because I don't believe that he actually has the best intentions for me deep down somewhere. I just believe this is all on me. This is all on me. It's my job. It's my fault, the situation I'm in. It's my job to get us out of it. And I've really been faced with that in the season and trying to face it in a way where I'm not just being obedient to my protector, my protective response. Yeah. And that's been hard. That's been hard for me to just sit in and go, what are you doing, God? A lot of times I busy myself still, but I'd say most of the time I'm I'm having to face and confront this and go, what is coming up in me?
Yeah.
And is there a room for God to bring compassion to my heart in this before I rush on to fixing it externally?
Which, I mean, if I look at you in the first 3, maybe 4 years of our marriage, let's say 4, you would have locked yourself in your office.
Yeah.
You would have increased your hours in a work day. You would have picked up Saturdays and probably half of a Sunday. And we would have gotten very disconnected, and it would not have been good. You would have really gone into taking matters into your own hands. And I look at you now, and I've watched you take more time off to be present with me and with Wilder, to help more, to take care of your own heart, to, you know, call your spiritual father and be loved in moments of stress. Like, I've watched you take this stance of like, you're still going to work hard. You're still working your butt off and stewarding things well, but you are so much more surrendered and partnered with trust. And it shows in your actions that you're like in the way that you're managing your time, which I have loved to see. Like, to me, I think there's so much more longevity in that too. And it feels just admirable because it's harder for you to not work more and harder.
Well, I would consider all this first world problems. Like, we built up our lives to when we had 52 W-2 employees and Alive and Free. We were making, you know, millions of dollars in that company, you know, and we loved the work of it. Honestly, we never started that thing for the money. And, but we were making really good money. And increasing every single year. Like, it was something that, and we lived very small for the first few years, like basically on nothing. Yeah. And we, after so many years of making good money, we were like, oh wait, we can actually afford a house and cars. Yeah. And we don't have to share a 4Runner anymore that we bought the first year of our marriage. Like, we can have our own cars. But I think I started believing as a young guy that made money quickly, like, oh, if we made money this fast, it's only going to grow that much more as we continue on in life. Like, I didn't have the concept of there are seasonal opportunities and seasonal shifts and changes. And I didn't understand enough about business at the time to build like a nest egg and like a safety net. Like, a lot of that profit should have just gone into an account where we had 6 to 12 months of reserves. This is all stuff that I'm like, oh, hindsight's 2020. You can look back and beat yourself up and go, this is what I should have done. Spencer would literally say, we'll spend more, make more. Yeah. Like, I would be stressed about what we were spending, but I didn't have a good idea of our financial situation. Like, I remember profiting, 6 figures in a month, and my brain could not comprehend how much money it was and what you could do with it. Yeah. I would see all of our business expenses and I'd have anxiety about that, but I just didn't have a grid for how much money we were actually making and what was ours to keep. Like, none of it made sense to me. And so I kind of deferred to Spencer. I had more of a poverty mindset driven by like, okay, there's money here now. It's not always going to be here. We need to save as much as we can. But I also don't know what our financial circumstance is. And Spencer's the one who's really making the money. And so I'm going to trust him to lead us. Yeah. And I still have that same heart posture. Like, just for you women out there, like, I have a voice in every aspect of our life. Yep. And I always speak my mind, and we always work through things and have conversations about it and honor each other in all of our decisions. We have never been like, that's my money, or this is... Oh yeah, never. Yeah. Never. But at the same time, I trust and honor my husband to be the provider in our relationship. Like, I worked really, really hard alongside him. I could take a lot of credit for a lot of the wealth that we had, but I also was like, I honor his skill set, and I honor that he has strategy and he knows how to do this in a way that I don't. And so because he's so much smarter than I am in this area, and it's his role in our family, just from a kingdom perspective, like, I'm going to honor and submit to him. So do I challenge and push back and speak my mind in a lot of things? Yes. But at the end of the day, I let him lead. And I also back him up. Like, when he makes decisions that I'm like,
I wish we wouldn't have done that. I wish I would have spoken up more. I'm also like, but he has to figure this out. He's got to learn it at the end of the day. And I'm not going to add shame and guilt. I'll share my feelings. I'll share that it hurts, that it feels frustrating. But at the end of the day, like, we are a team, and I want us to both grow in wisdom, and I want him to feel supported. And he supports me in all of these ways. And so through all of it, his mindset has kind of been like, spend more, make more. And I'm like, well, if you say so.
Well, even in the worst of our seasons here, we would be wealthy by anybody's standards in terms of our monthly income.
Yes.
But our monthly expenses grew based on a past season that we made lots.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if it was a tenth of our income at the time, a tenth of 6 figures in a month is still a lot of money. You know,
yes,
like I remember spending like $3 or $4 grand on wine on this one month.
Actually, it was $2,000.
No, I think it was 3,000.
What? It was a month I don't remember.
And I was like, oh, it's only like a little under 1.5% of our income.
When I saw the cases of good wine, I literally had to go to counseling.
It was like $200 bottles of wine
to process through all of my rage that I felt. How much money was spent on wine.
Yes. And I still love really good wine. I haven't had a good bottle of wine in a while. Well, we had a nice-ish bottle the other two nights ago.
We skipped eating out on our date night. We did a picnic, and I said, get a bottle of wine.
It's been months since I bought a bottle.
It was very affordable still.
But still, it's like, I'm learning now, okay, I think this is the big lens too. So there's a few things here. I think one, it's, how do you think about money? How do you think about like the marketplace? What does money mean? Like, why do we make money? What's the point of money? There's all these big questions in that. Then there's why do we make purchases? And I think at the time, I'm thinking this is wisdom because it's less than what we're making, right? All I'm thinking is like, let's just buy less stuff than what we're making. As long as we're spending less than what we're making, we're winning. And I think what I didn't factor in was that a lot of those expenses will continue on into seasons unknown. And now I'm going, oh, what even is financial freedom? Because I built a business that I have to keep selling things in order to sustain its revenue versus, Jim Baker, who we're going to talk about Jim Baker towards the end, but learning from some of him, I'm doing his course right now. Actually, we're going to have him do a free training with anybody that wants to. It's
going to be so good.
Yeah, we're kind of going to introduce him because it's some of the best stuff I've ever heard around finances in my entire life. But one of the things that he says is that financial freedom is never having to ask your money for permission to do what God's calling you to do. And I'm like, oh, I've had to ask money for permission for so many things. And that's only because of my unhealthy relationship with money that I'm having to learn and grow in. And I think when I look at that past season, what I really have to explore is, why do I need these purchases to be okay? I think when you're working that much and you're carrying that much responsibility, you almost need that much more reward to feel.
Is the belief.
Like, this is my belief, is that to feel like it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm doing all this so that I can get the home and the car. And those are just small things. So then we keep we almost don't have to consult God on these things that feel like small things in our lives. And what I didn't realize was that it may have seemed like worldly wisdom, but I actually was making decisions off of me and my need for medication at different times. And it's okay. I don't have any guilt or shame for it. But I think in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have gotten that car, probably wouldn't have, I think the house honestly still was a great investment at the time.
It was a great investment. Honestly, when we bought...
Another big risk though.
When we bought that house though, I knew this house, we're in it again. We walked out, and after doing the walkthrough, I just knew that this was our place. But I was like, wait, babe, I want to take a picture of it. And we turn around, and there's a double rainbow covering our home. Literally picture perfect. And it felt like this really sweet confirmation we were supposed to get the home.
Yeah.
And right after we closed on it and put so much money, put all of the rest of our money into it, the business tanked. but it's still like it has almost doubled in value since we bought it. So I'm just so thankful we listened to the Lord. It felt like a big, risky, scary decision.
It retained our net worth, basically, by having this home. So now that we sell it, we're going to have a nice stack of cash that we're going to get to consult God on, what we should do with it. And also why we're going through a lot of financial learning right now.
Yeah.
But like, here's my thing. I've had all these thoughts around stuff, and it's been really hard for me to like listen to financial speakers or like talk to other, quote unquote mentors or leaders around finance. A lot of financial consulting that I've heard or like advice has been just save. And I'm like, you don't really talk about how to provide value in the marketplace and increase your ability to increase income. You're basically talking to employees that believe that their wage is set in stone. Mm-hmm. And for me, like I look at someone like an Elon Musk, and I'm not saying he's somebody you look up to for every aspect of your life, but he is the wealthiest man in the world, and it's because he's taken multiple billion-dollar risks in his life. And so I'm like, I want to be a person of risk. And also, I want to be able to manage our exposure on the other side of risk. And I'd say just as many times as we've had horrible turnouts with risks, I'd say we've had way more amazing results
for sure
from risks that we've taken.
Yeah.
And, this is a Winston Churchill quote, but he said, success is the ability to move from failure to failure without any lack of enthusiasm. That to me, well, I'm sure have lost enthusiasm this season.
No,
I'm healing. I'm healing and growing. Here's what I'm healing and growing for sure. But that enthusiasm, where does that come from? In relationship, if you have a heartache or you go through a loss, like you lose a loved one, your heart is now occupied by grief. And if you choose to let yourself grieve it, or you let compassion in, then it can actually move out and free up real estate within your heart and within your mind to be able to form new attachments, new relationships. But if that grief gets stored up and trapped and you don't work through it, you shut it down, you shame it, you medicate it with other things, it's going to find ways to come up, but it will block you from new attachments and that enthusiasm. It'll block you from having hope again, from having joy again, because it's telling you a narrative that there's no point. It's telling you a narrative that this is just going to keep happening. It's telling you a narrative
it says don't risk again.
Don't risk again.
Don't open yourself up.
Yes.
Don't make yourself vulnerable. Don't take the lead.
This is what happens. Yeah. This is why we don't do this. Yeah. And that's I think it's a difficult thing to take ownership for too in our lives, because I could feel that in this season where I'm like, man, I just want to I've had those feelings of like, I want to burn it all down, or like, some of those feelings of shame, like, did I just royally screw this up? Mm-hmm. Have I just been a terrible steward with money? Have I been a terrible business person? Do I know anything at all? Those are all feelings and thoughts that I'll have sometimes. And then it'll shut me down from even being able to produce anything, because I'm sitting there in my like little miniature pity party, and I'm like, I don't have anything to give. What do I have to give? And it's just like it turns into all these thoughts, and I have to invite God into those thoughts if I'm going to work my way through it. If I have to be honest with him, it just like, I felt like I've been in the middle of so many of my own personal life Psalms. You know how David starts in all of this complaining and then ends in, but God, this is who you are, and here's how you've shown up, and this is who you are to me. I feel like so much of my dialogue with God has been that in this season. Yeah. And I feel like you have to have those seasons.
I feel like those are always the rock bottoms that turn into the springboard into what God's calling you to. I look at a lot of the hardest seasons of our life, which, side note, the hardest season of our marriage was when we had the most money. It felt like everything else was shattering. And I'm not glorifying not having money either, because there's some of you that are listening to this and you're like, oh,
that's why I don't have money. That's why I stay away from it.
I've been wise. I haven't taken risks. I have a savings. I have investments. And it's like, you might be living in just as much fear and lack And that is also not healthy. You know, it's like, it's not even about the status of your different accounts that you have and the ratios of how you've made these financial decisions. It's like, what is the heart posture that you're making those decisions from? And are you fully surrendered to God? Like if God told you right now, I want you to write a $5,000 check, or I want you to give away everything that's in your bank account to that waitress that just served you, would you do it? Are you willing? Would you drain that savings? Would you take your money out of that investment and give it to the random stranger that God asked you to? It's all about this heart posture. Can you embrace the unknown?
Can you really, truly embrace the unknown of what's ahead?
Yeah. It's all about this heart posture, though, of surrender and trust. And do we want to be good stewards? Yes. Are there so many parables in the Bible about stewardship? Yes. So there's something to say about wisdom, but it's also about the mindset, the scarcity and the lack that we're partnered with. You know, some of us don't have any money and we glorify, you know, being rich in spirit, you know, poor in the flesh, rich in spirit. And it's this thing that we celebrate. Oh, people with money, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you have just as much fear and anxiety whenever your bills come in?
Yeah.
Are you actually free? Are you actually free, or does your money still have power over you? So I want you to just, as you're listening to our version of our story that has to do with having money, making a lot of money, losing a lot of money, like it doesn't matter what the scale is in your life. You know, it's really about your heart posture and getting honest about your belief systems and your decision-making process around your finances.
I remember this prominent speaker that I probably and still do have had the most respect for and honor for as a pastor, as a speaker, as somebody that's connected to God that has shared incredible revelations. And one time I heard that he's like trying to buy a private jet, and I just was like, what? You know, like this person is trying to buy a private jet. And then I started hearing through like the grapevine, all these people that had judgments towards him for wanting to buy a private jet. Like I think at the time it was like $10 or $15 million or something for this private jet. And I don't even know if he ever bought it. I don't think he did, but he had mentioned it. He was asked in an interview and he was talking about getting a private jet. And I just remember having all these judgments or like feelings that were kind of there, but I was like, no, he's probably got a, you know, good intention behind it, or I need to think about this differently. But I was coming up against my own thoughts and judgments, and other people were just ripping him to shreds. Like this just shows how he's a prosperity preacher and just all these different things. And they love to cast their stones. And then I heard him get up in front of, in front of a church one time and speak. And I watched him, break down into tears, talking about how many hours he spends in airports away from family and away from, doing ministry. And I could tell this is actually has nothing to do with the medication a jet might bring somebody else, but the utility that it can provide his family and people that he ministers to, that it can save like hundreds, if not thousands of hours per year, because he travels like 250 days a year. Sheesh. And I was just sitting there going like, oh my gosh, this has nothing to do with money. This has to do with utility. And because of my own small thinking and mind, I had thoughts and judgments about that and it all came from lack. Yeah. It all came from there's not enough. If he has that, then who's that taking away from? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, I know so many people that think that way. There's only a small amount. Money is like being created literally every day. They're printing money. And like there's just so much money that's out there, and money is not our source of security. It is not the thing that rescues us or saves us. Like even Jesus, when he was forced to pay taxes, caught a fish and pulled a coin out of a fish's mouth to pay Caesar. He's like, render what Caesar's. And it's like, to him, it's nothing. Yeah. It's like so insignificant. It's just a way, it's just a physical and natural thing that we can steward here. But it happens to be the number one thing that he talked about in all of Scripture. Like Jesus mentioned money more than anything else. Why? And it's because it has our hearts. And even says in Matthew 6, like, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I've noticed, like, I've put my treasure in that. You know, like, when you're looking at somebody like, who's your savior? It's where you derive your safety, your joy, your excitement around? Is that a person? Maybe you watching or listening to this, that's a person that your future spouse, or maybe it's your current spouse, or maybe it's, something else, even in small ways. It's
anything that your thought life primarily goes towards.
Yes.
Is your God, ultimately.
And that's true whether you're poor and all you think about is money, or if you're rich and all you think about is money.
Yeah.
Or it's dominating a lot of your thought life. Yeah. And I think I'm getting to this point now where I'm like, I want to keep addressing all these things, and also still ask the question of like, how do I steward this well, and also be a person that I feel like God has called me to be, to provide into the church, like to provide into what God's called us to not be what I thought was just a minister constantly asking for a handout. And I don't have anything against people raising support or funds, but there are other ways also to make money than just that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going back, I look at some of our lowest lows financially and how those have been the sweetest moments of surrender and intimacy. And not because we had nothing, but because this heart posture of like, what do we do? How are you moving in our life, God? Like, what's the next step you want us to take? This is, that posture of dependence and surrender and faith, like needing to fully rely on him. And I look at the ways we had to fight to find joy whenever we had anxiety over bills getting paid, or whenever we had anxiety over the $1 million of debt, but we heard God say, like, one step at a time, like I'm laying out the stone one step at a time for you, keep going. And I look at all of the deep, sweet intimacy we've even grown in our marriage, the times we had nothing and we prayed together. I mean, like the amount of praying I'm doing on a daily basis now. Like I think I start every morning just praying out loud with our like family on our walk. I'm just covering everything that I can.
Yeah.
And I love these moments. Like I love the moments where it feels like it is just raining blessing and favor too. I feel like I have no less intimacy with God in those times. I'm in gratitude and I'm thanking him. But these are the moments that really strip you and expose what's in your heart. And I know for me in these moments, I want to be refined in this. I want to come out looking more like love.
Yeah.
I want to grow in wisdom. I want to grow in intimacy with God. I want to become more like him. And so I love these opportunities that we're in. Like we really are in this posture of, wait, we don't have wisdom. God, give it to us. There's that verse. I can't remember where it comes from, story of my life, but it says, if any of you lack wisdom, ask for it and it'll be given to you. Mm-hmm. So simple. It's so simple. You don't have wisdom? Ask for it. It'll be given to you.
Yeah.
And I, for years, have prayed for wisdom, but in this season, I've prayed for wisdom and finances specifically. Like, how can we do things better moving forward? How can we steward well? How can we create a little more steadiness and less, mountain and valley in our life? And it's been a beautiful journey. I'm feeling so connected to God, and it's been really sweet being in the wild adventure of what is going to happen next. We're still in it. We still don't know what's going to happen next. We're back in our house and we are waiting to sell. And when we sell, we don't know where we're moving. We don't know what kind of house we'll be in. We don't know if we'll rent. We don't know if we'll buy. We don't know if we'll stay with family for a while. Like we just have absolutely no clue. And so even though we're comfortable being back in our space that we've called a home for the last 3.5 years, we still, actually 4 years now.
Wow. Wait.
4 years in May.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Dang.
We still are in a lot of unknown. And I feel really excited about this course because I have wanted really tangible things that we can both be united on in marriage. It like with how to steward our finances and the heart posture around it. I've almost wanted us to share the same values and have the same leadership and like the same path that we're walking on and following.
Yeah.
As like, what is our baseline and how are we going to make decisions moving forward? Because I think, especially for those of you who are married, being united in your financial decision-making is one of the most important things that you could have in a marriage. Like it can bring so much division, or it can bring, I mean, for us, it's just not even a thing.
Yeah.
Money has never, ever, ever divided us, besides our triggers around it when we're trying to work through like how we feel about when money was spent in past seasons.
Yeah.
But it's really just us being vulnerable and honest with each other and trying to get back to a point of connection.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's really just a tool more than anything else in our life and in our marriage. And we're trying to figure out how can we use this tool in a way that honors God and looks like the kingdom. Like, I know we both desire to have more than enough for our family, yes, but then so that we can give. Like, we love hosting, we love taking care of people, we love giving gifts, we love blessing people. And I know we both really care about living that generous lifestyle, and so that's part of our trajectory, but it really should just be a tool. It shouldn't be something that brings division.
Well, it's neutral. You know, it's like a baseball bat can either be a weapon or it can be a tool used by a baseball player. You know, it doesn't matter. Money has no, like, it's not evil or anything like that. Money is literally, it's whatever it is in the hands of whoever's using it. And you know, as I'm going through this, like some of this course, and like as I'm talking to Jim on the phone here and there, and Jim Baker, he's like a pastor over in Ohio, and incredible heart, and some of the best teaching I've ever heard on God's goodness, which I was surprised by when I jumped into his course. It was like God's goodness around money, God's goodness around money, God's goodness. It's like I'm just hearing over and over again how good of a father he is. And what I notice is it's like it loosens my grip on my money when I go, oh, I actually don't feel like God wants bad things for me. He wants me to suffer. He wants me, you know, and ultimately he's starting out there, but then, and I know he has got a lot of practicals, but anytime I've looked at like, you know, Dave Ramsey stuff or like other courses out there or teachings, it's just like save. And you can't save your way into wealth. You can't. And you also can't tithe your way into wealth. Like, you just can't. I know so many people that believe that, think that, and you can't. Now, is it something that you can want to do and cheerfully do as you trust God? 100%. But you have to be able to invest your way into wealth. And I love that he gives a bunch of practicals, but his thing around like financial freedom is having your money make enough money. So like having enough in investments that it pays all of your living expenses. Your personal expenses are paid for by your investments. And then he said, now you can be free to do whatever God asks you to do, because you don't have to work again in order to provide for your personal expenses. Your personal expenses are covered by your investments. And I never thought about that when we were making lots of money, because, you know,
just kind of felt like we were going to keep making a ton.
Right. And now I'm thinking like, man, 500 grand just in this investment account would make 50 to 100 grand a year. That would pay rent or mortgage or whatever. That's pretty great. And I'm going, how can we build more of that? Because that will free us up to be able to build businesses. Like we have 3 businesses that I'm building right now. And I notice like having high personal expenses and having the income that we have right now makes it so I have to take paychecks from these companies, which makes it so I can leverage less of my own money to grow the companies, which means that their ability to scale and impact is a lot slower. Yeah. Versus if I didn't have to take a paycheck from them, how fast would they grow if I was reinvesting 10 grand into this one, reinvesting 15 grand into this one, you know? And it's just getting me to think differently about it. And does he talk about saving? Yes. Does he talk about getting out of debt? Yes. Does he talk about like downsizing? Yes. A lot of practicals, but I do love that a lot of it's about the heart and our heart around money. And I think so many Christians need to get free from that. Yeah. And honestly, after talking to him for like an hour on the phone the other day and even asking him some like personal advice and stuff, I was like, I trust this guy more than anybody around finances. And also, that's why we're going to be sharing him with you as an audience, because I was like, man, our people if we need this bad, how many other people need it? Yeah. And so we wanted to just get all of our list involved with his training that he's going to do and teach a bunch of practicals. I think it's like a week and a half or something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And we also want to make a way for those of you who are listening to this, not in the timing of when it's released. We are going to be changing.
Wednesday the 26th.
Okay, so Wednesday the 26th, there will be an option for those of you who are hearing this and want to join in with him live. You can do a training.
It's like 7 p.m. Eastern, I think, is when we're going to do it.
For those of you who can't make that time, or for those of you who are listening to this later on, it will still be a link that you can use to go to the training or the course.
Yeah, replay.
We're going to make sure that there's a way for you to still access it, but it will not be a live training past February 26th.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're really excited to share. We're really excited to keep sharing our growth journey with you guys.
We're in it with you. That's why we're not offering our own course or advice. We're not offering our own training or advice. We just want to be in this journey, honestly, with you guys, participating. So
failing forward.
Yeah.
This has honestly been my motto. I think you told this to me when we first started our business. Someone talked about failing forward, and I just held on to it because it's such a shame breaker. It's so easy for us to experience this heaviness, this voice that we're not enough, that we're not doing enough, that we don't have wisdom, that we're bad stewards, that we made a bad decision, that we have poverty mentality, and like we can be on the judgment seat of our own life. And that's not what we're called to. We don't get to be the judge of our own life. Like, that throne belongs to the King, and he's judged us as love, as righteous, as worthy. Like, he says you're valuable. Like, it's okay for us to make messes and for us to fail forward. Like, that's what we're doing. So just know, as we're sharing our mess, we're doing this knowing that we're loved. Like 10, 20, 15, 38 years from now, like, we're going to look back at all of the messes we made and how much we learned from it and how much we grew. And I know we'll have a nice nest egg. I know we'll have good investments. I know we'll be able to take care of our kids and give generously in all the ways we want to. And now is like the time to learn, and that's okay. And for you listening to this, it doesn't matter what decade of your life you're in. It's never too late.
Yeah.
You get to keep failing forward and growing.
And it's still like, I still believe in entrepreneurship too. Like, just being told exactly what your hour is worth and you feeling victim to that is not your portion. If you feel called to do a job and you're paid hourly, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's great.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I have no judgments or like condescension towards people like that. It's when you feel victim to that being your portion. That
if you think that's your only option.
Yeah. If you don't feel like you have the ability to solve problems in the marketplace in exchange for monetary exchange, like monetary transaction, then I do think you're missing out on what's available and living in true freedom on the planet. But I think this is just the start of our discussion. I know we want to have more talks. And if you guys have questions too on YouTube, you can feel free to throw some questions down there in the comment section. If you are watching this or you're listening to this on the podcast, go to Sammy's Instagram and throw her some, DM her some questions. Am I allowed to do that? You already have enough DMs.
Sure. Hopefully I can get to them.
Yeah. Well, we'll be checking actively. We will. You will be checking actively. I'm going to put you on checking actively. You better check actively. I'm just kidding. And yeah, send us your questions, because I think this is a rich subject, and we know that we're very much in our own problems and solutions awareness. So if you have some that you're like, hey, this is actually a subject I'd love to hear your thoughts on, or anything like that, please throw that our way.
Yeah.
And in this description, we'll actually put a link to a registration for that training with Jim Bakker. I want to see so many believers get financially free, and not just pragmatically and practically, but also in their hearts towards finances and with God. And this guy, Jim Bakker, I would trust him fully with that. So we're going to put a link in the description. You guys can access that. And, we're probably going to do a few more episodes here so that we can keep having this dialogue with you guys.
Take care.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye.